Hello and welcome back to St. Thomas Aquinas for everyone. My name is Dave Palmer and we are learning the 7 attributes of God as we continue to learn the Summa. I hope you're enjoying this. Be sure to comment below, like the video, and we're really just getting started, but we have to understand God because God is our end. God is our beatitude. We have to come to know God as John said in John 17:3, this is eternal life, to know thee, the one true God. So who is this God that we're trying to get to know? Thomas has 7 attributes of him. Today we learn number 6. Quick review, we learned that God is, first of all, simple, and then secondly, God is perfect. The third attribute of God was that he is good, and then we learned that God is infinite, and that God is immutable. Okay, he does not change in any way. So those are the first 5. What is number 6? Well, that's what we're going to learn for today. And this is question number 10 in the Summa, is that God is eternal. And you're going to find that eternity in God is very much related to his immutability, because that which does not change can also be outside of time as well. Now, when we think of eternity, we think of time, okay? So in order to understand God being outside of time, we have to first understand that in our nature, we are inside of time. So I want you to, on a regular basis, think about the ways that time plays a part of our life. And it's not hard to do. You know, when you think of time, you think of the clock. How many times per day do you either look at your watch or your iPhone or what have you, the clock on the wall, and you know, what time is it? Well, that's time, right? And then think about when you're at a sports event, you know, football, for example. It's all based on time. You know, when the 4 quarters run out in a football game, or the hockey match, or basketball, the end of the game. So it's all based on time elapsing, right? And so another way that we live in a world dominated by time. How about going to, you know, races like in the Olympics? Yeah, you can race, you can have a winner and a loser, but everybody wants to know, what was your time? How fast did you run? Was it a world record time, right? So time. We live inside of time. Think of New Year's Eve. I don't know if you watch the countdown and the ball dropping. We wouldn't even have a new year. It'd be kind of pointless if there wasn't time, right? The 365 days pass. The Earth travels around the sun a whole, you know, time. It's all time. And then you probably have had the experience also of being at work and you're looking at the clock, and when's 5 o'clock going to come along, because that's when I get off, because that's when my time is up. So it doesn't, there's a lot of ways that time influences our every single day. You know, these videos are about 8 minutes long each. If they were an hour long, you probably wouldn't be as eager to watch them, because you don't have the time to watch something that's really long. So time is very important. So Thomas goes on in question number 7 to try to find a definition, question 10 I should say, a definition of eternity. Now, the definition he comes with is difficult language to understand, but I want to go ahead and give it to you anyway, so you can at least see how Thomas defines time and eternity. He says eternity is the simultaneously whole and perfect possession of interminable life. Okay, now, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you, but it's, you know, it's pretty wordy and big words and all that, but if that's something that you can kind of understand, simultaneously whole, it means it happens in an instant. There isn't succession, there isn't change. And we're going to talk a lot about immutability, the last attribute of God that we learned about. Okay, now this next part I think will make a little bit more sense. He's trying to explain eternity, and he says, as we attain to the knowledge of simple things by way of compound things, so must we reach to the knowledge of eternity by means of time. Okay, we have to try to understand God, who is infinitely beyond us, by looking at our own experience of change or of time. Okay, as we just did, we showed examples of time, which is nothing but the numbering of movement by before and after. Okay, so far so good? For since succession occurs in every movement, and one part comes after another, the fact that we reckon before and after in movement makes us apprehend time. Again, he's talking about movement. He's talking about change. Okay, it all ties together. The first mover, the first cause, right? All this, the proofs for the existence of God and also his attributes all linked together. Hopefully I can make sense out of that here by the end of this, okay? Which is nothing else but the measure of before and after in movement. Now, in a thing bereft of movement, which means it does not move, which is always the same, which is God, there is no before or after, as therefore the idea of time consists in the numbering of before and after in movement, so likewise in the apprehension of the uniformity of what is outside of movement consists the idea of eternity. Now, you're probably either saying, what? That made no sense? Or you're thinking, oh, okay, that made sense. Again, if it mostly makes sense, I think you're way ahead of the curve. Okay, God has no movement. He has no change. And so therefore, these are very much interrelated. His eternity is related to his immutability, which has to do with his infinity and his perfection. It all ties together. So let's just kind of recap that. Remember, when we tried to grasp God's perfection, we had to see things in our life, like that perfect dog, or the perfect baby, or the perfect banana split. Okay, none of these things are perfect, but in order to try to grasp a little bit of God's perfection, we had to think about things in our own life by comparison, and then lift them up, 10,000 times to try to even grasp a little bit of what God is in his perfection. When we talked about God's immutability, the only way we could really relate to immutability is to talk about the mutability in our life, the weather that changes, the seasons, the stages of our life. We're constantly changing. Remember that? The traffic, where the car is in a different place 1 second than it is the next second. So we look at our life and say, wow, everything's changing. And then you strip all that away and say, oh, okay, well, maybe I can understand a little bit about what God is like by seeing our limitations, our complexity, okay, our complicated life, and getting back to the simple and immutable and infinite and eternal life of God. Okay, I know it's difficult. So then in article number 2, Thomas says, well, is God eternal? And he says the idea of eternity follows immutability, okay, unchangeableness, as the idea of time follows movement. Hence, as God is supremely immutable, it supremely belongs to him to be eternal. Nor is he eternal only, but he is his own eternity, whereas no other being is its own duration, as no other is its own being. Now God is his own uniform being, and hence, as he is his own essence, so he is his own eternity, okay? Remember when Moses went up on the mountain and God revealed himself in the burning bush, and Moses said, who are you? And God said, I am. Okay, God is. He is existence. He is eternity. He is infinity, okay? Again, we'll never fully comprehend this. Even in heaven, we won't fully comprehend. But as we learned about simplicity, remember, we learned that his essence is his existence, is his nature, is his suppositum. We could also say equals his infinity, and equals his goodness, equals his perfection, equals his eternity. With God, it's all the same, okay? We're complicated. God is perfection in all regards, okay? And it's hard to get our head around, but if nothing else, it should fill you with this sense of awe that, wow, this is the God that I worship, the God that I can actually come to know, the God that loves me, and this amazing being loves me. And so, again, if you're a little bit confused still, hang in there, and it'll start making sense the more of these that you do. That is the 6th attribute of God. We have only one more to go in these attributes of God. I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know what you're thinking. Is this making sense to you? Are there any parts of that are complicated? Maybe the whole thing's complicated and hard for you to understand. Let me know. Comment below. And again, thank you very much for coming and going through the Summa with me as we learn from the Master, St. Thomas Aquinas, about coming to know God here on earth in preparation for knowing him in a more perfect way in heaven. I'm Dave Palmer. This is St. Thomas Aquinas for everyone. Thank you very much for watching.